Folks, the FM21 Streamer Showdown is back for Season 2 tonight, and I know your first instinct might be that you're very sad because I'm not in this one. No chance of me becoming Kevy 6 times just yet, but me not being in it means I can do something I've never done before, and that is give you my analysis on all 9 squads that have been selected before the tournament even starts and tell you who's going to win. Hello folks and welcome to my preview of Season 2 of the FM21 Streamer Showdown. Before we go any further, just got to remind you, the Streamer Showdown is tonight and tomorrow night. 7 PM start times over on Twitch. Make sure you get over there for kickoff time so you don't miss out on any of the action. And of course, you want to be following the Streamer Showdown Twitch account, twitch.tv/FM Streamer Showdown. That is where you'll be able to see all of the action from all of the games. And of course, the 9 streamers involved will be streaming from their own individual channels as well. Now, if you follow me or the Streamer Showdown over on Twitter, you'll already know that I'm not taking part in this one, despite winning Season 1 last month. Bottom line, I needed to give somebody else a chance to win so that I've got someone who's built themselves up a little bit for me to then beat in Season 3. There's no use me constantly beating the same old losers over and over again. One of them needs to become a winner, even if it's only temporary, so that I've got someone with a little bit of credibility to beat next time around. But just because I'm not playing doesn't mean I'm not going to be involved in the weekend, which of course leads to this video where I'm going to take you through all 9 of the squads that have been drafted over in the draft on Thursday evening. I'm going to show you the strengths and the weaknesses of each of the squads. I'm going to give you an idea of how I think they're going to line up, how I think each squad is going to do. And at the end of the video, I am going to tell you who is going to win Season 2 of the FM Streamer Showdown. No, I'm not going to tell you who I think is going to win. This is Kevy 5 times. I'm going to tell you who's actually going to win, because it will be obvious from these squads once we've finished going through them. So without further ado, let's jump into the squads. We're going to go through them in alphabetical order, because what other way is there to do it? And let's get stuck into it. So Ches is returning for his second Streamer Showdown after getting destroyed by me in the quarterfinals of the last one. And I've got to be honest, I think he's made some strange picks as part of this squad. He used his wild card on a goalkeeper, and although Handanovic is a good goalkeeper, he's expensive, he's old, and you've got one wild card. What are you using it on a goalkeeper for? There are goalkeepers in the Premier League, and it feels like maybe he should have acted a little earlier to secure one of those, rather than losing a wildcard spot that he could have used somewhere else in the squad where there are definitely some squad gaps. If we filter by his best players, Sergio Aguero, Son, Paul Pogba, none of them have really performed in the showdown in the past, and I think that's going to be the worry for Ches, and is a sign that he is still learning his way in the Streamer Showdown. I think if I'm him, I line up in a 4-2-3-1 like this. He's got a reasonable core of the side if we're looking at these players based on real-life reputations. Handanovic, Stones, Pogba, Maddison, Aguero. You've got Son supporting out wide. I think Godfrey is a little bit weak as a second centre-back there, and I think that's going to be a potential problem area for Ches out wide. I've put Ferran Torres in there. It could just as easily be Eric Lamela, Mason Greenwood. The fact that that's not obvious, again, potentially spells a bit of a problem area out wide for Ches as well. It's a squad that feels a little unbalanced. If he'd spent a little less on Aguero and Pogba, he could have, and Son, he could have upgraded a little more in some of these areas where he may have picked a little poorly. And for me, if he's going to throw a lot of money at a striker, it's got to be Lukaku as his wild card and just spread the money that he saves out across the rest of the squad. Losing finalist to the last 2 showdowns, Klaas, including being battered by me on penalties in the final of Season 1 of the FM21 Showdowns. Klaas used his wild card on Raphael Varane, which I actually think is quite a sensible choice. He missed out on Virgil van Dijk, and Varane, I think, is probably going to be your next best thing. He may have overspent a little bit on his goalkeeper in the shape of Edison, but he's actually ended up with a pretty decent goalkeeper. And Aubameyang, I've not seen him perform well in the showdowns in the past. He's another one who kind of goes in that category of overpriced superstar. And considering he's also got Rashford and Martial in his squad, who in the showdowns do what Aubameyang does better than Aubameyang has done it, I feel like that's probably money that could have been invested in other areas of the squad for Klaas. Looking at the fact that he's drafted 5 centre-backs, I think he must be going for a 3 at the back system. But with the likes of Rashford, Aubameyang, Martial, Rodrigo as his strikers, I can't imagine him doing anything other than wide forwards as well. So I think we're going to see some kind of variation of this from Klaas. And I think if this is the case, then he's potentially a little weak on that right-hand side. I've got Martial out there at the moment. It could be Rodrigo. It could be Aubameyang. You could potentially have Raul Jimenez up front. He might be going for a flat 3. He might be going for 3 in midfield and 2 up top. But there's certainly depth in the squad and lots of options for Klaas. I actually think it's a pretty solid squad. The one question mark for me is whether he could have maybe saved a little bit of money on Ederson and added a little bit of value somewhere else in the squad. But you know what? Looking at the squad, there's not much in the way of duds in here, and having a decent goalkeeper is definitely not to be sniffed at. I had Manuel Neuer in one of the ones that I won, and he was definitely a difference maker. I think this squad could be a contender, and we might well see Klaas in the final once again. Dr. Benji then, the man who was promised if he doesn't win the showdown this time, he's never going to play in it again. And I actually think this is the best draft Ben has ever done. If we have a look at his team, you can see best player, Lionel Messi, but he didn't go for him early. He actually built a really strong, well-balanced squad before going for Messi later on in the draft when he could actually afford him, and just went after his big, expensive wild card. So he had his superstar along with what is a very solidly put together squad. If potentially a little unbalanced in preference of attacking players, to me it screams 4-2-3-1. Knowing Ben, it will be something magical and magnificent that'll have holes in it instead. But to me, I'd use a 4-2-3-1 with this. I showed in the last showdown just what a creative force Jack Grealish can be, and Diogo Jota, Grealish and Messi supporting any one of Werner, Danny Ings, Calvert-Lewin as your strikers. He's definitely not short of firepower. If anything, he probably has 1 or 2 attacking players too many. And if he gets injuries further back or in midfield, he could have a problem. I can see that he's tried to get players who can play in multiple positions to try and mitigate that a little bit. I think Declan Rice is a really important signing for him, because I'd play him in midfield initially like I did in my Leicester save. But he can just as easily drop back into that back 4 for cover, especially if he loses a couple of centre-backs to suspensions or injuries, which we know can accumulate in the showdown. With Callum Chambers as his only backup as a centre-back, I can see Declan Rice having to play a few games in defence as well. James Milner is another example of a player who can play just about anywhere for him. But I do think if you look a little bit beyond the first team in centre-back, central midfield, I do worry he's not quite got the strength and depth he could have had if he'd have maybe not blown all that money on Messi. But you know what? It's the most balanced, deepest squad Ben has ever done. If he wants to have a play around with a Messi, you never know. It might just work out for him. I think the trick for Ben is going to be working out early on who his best striker is. FNG is the one man in this showdown that's never been in a showdown at the same time as me. So I think he's officially ducking me because he's probably very afraid, as he should be. Looking at his squad, if we sort that by ability, he's gone very big on the attacking players, Mane and Haaland, as his 2 best players, Kante up there as well as one of the better players that he's got. Haaland, I have question marks over because I've not seen him have a good showdown yet, but on the flip side of that, the likes of Mane, Kante, Pulisic, we know they can be effective in showdowns. And I think as a first 11, as a 4-2-3-1, it does look strong if he can get Haaland firing, which sounds mad, but I'm not sure about this attacking 2 of James Rodriguez and Erling Haaland. I don't remember seeing Rodriguez in a showdown before. If he's been in there, he didn't pull up any trees because I don't remember him. And like I say, Haaland, getting him to work in this format does seem to be something of an issue, but he's got a showdown veteran in Callum Wilson to come off the bench. Wilfred Zaha's got a real good backup option for the wide areas in attack as well. My question would be, if he starts to pick up injuries or suspensions, particularly in midfield, but also in defence, where do you go if Kante gets injured? What does that midfield start to look like? And I do worry that maybe he's gone a little bit overboard on the likes of Mane, Haaland, Kante and not quite saved himself enough money for a full 18-man squad. It's not a terrible draft. It's also a team that I don't see winning the tournament. Box in the Box for the second showdown in a row is determined to try and prove that strikerless can work in the showdown, and I'm still not convinced that it can. When the best striker, when the only striker you have in your squad is Kelechi Iheanacho, it screams of not taking the tournament seriously as far as I'm concerned. He does have a lot of quality players in midfield and defence, as you would imagine. He's not drafted any strikers. And I think, I guess this is what we're going to end up doing, some kind of weird 3 at the back, 3 up front, but not as strikers, odd system, and you can kind of use these players interchangeably within that. He's got strength in depth in all of these positions, but just, I don't see the system is going to work. We know he's going to be a threat from the set pieces. The throw-ins were a big thing from Lee in the last showdown, and he's certainly got plenty of big lads throughout the team who can help him out in those kind of situations. But to me, the squad needs a plan B. It doesn't have one. If your plan B is Kelechi Iheanacho, you better hope your plan A works. And I don't know if we've seen any evidence that it actually does in previous showdowns. I would suggest to Lee he probably doesn't want to make any plans for Sunday tea time. So James Olcott returns for season 2 of the showdown. He's the one who went early on his wild card. Kylian Mbappe, first round draft pick for him. And I think it shows because the rest of the squad has some very noticeable gaps in it. Nick Pope as your best goalkeeper, major question marks there. I think this is probably how he's going to line up, but I think it says everything that if you hit the selection advice button, it's putting Fabinho in at centre-back because it's decided his other centre-backs aren't good enough. This is a very weak defence, not a great goalkeeper. Bakayoko in midfield. I don't think he'll do it. I think he'll go Thiago Silva at the back and go Fabinho and Jorginho in midfield. But he has very much gone all or nothing on attacking midfield kind of players. I don't even know who his out-and-out goal scorer is. He's relying on a lot from Mbappe. Maybe Cavani's going to play. Maybe he's looking for Bruno Fernandes to weigh in with a lot of goals. There's certainly a lot of creativity and talent in the attack. There's not really a typical streamer showdown style, will score you 10 goals kind of striker in here. He's not got himself a Timo Werner or a Jamie Vardy or that kind of player. And when you balance that out with an overpriced superstar who's caused him to skimp and save on the rest of the squad, a really poor defence and a midfield that has no depth, I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if by the end of Saturday, James Olcott is bottom of the league. POMFEAM is clearly a student of the Chapman school of picking a streamer showdown squad, but I think he's maybe missed out a few pages in the textbook. He's built very strong at the back. His early picks were all about building a defence. It's where he used his wild card as well. And that back four and goalkeeper is going to be solid as long as it doesn't get any injuries, because he doesn't really have much in the way of backups to any of them. Learn how you do this, Tom. You need backups, and I'm not sure that he's got them. Attacking wise, he's done the right thing. He's gone for Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy's always going to score you goals in the showdown. The question mark I've had about him, and the reason I didn't draft him in season 1, is that he is old and injury prone now. And when you're playing Wednesday, Saturday, all the way through, he's going to pick up injuries. He's going to get tired. And when your backup to him is Richarlison or Giroud, Moura, I look at that bench and I am not inspired. He's only gone with one goalkeeper, but somehow still doesn't have 6 good options to come off the bench. The first team looks fine. It might even end up being more of a 4-3-3. But I think the wide players, he could do better. There's not really much in strength in depth when it comes to the attack. It's Tom, so he'll probably still be competitive in the league and then go out in the semi-finals because that's what he does. But I think he knows he could have done better with this draft, and it does look like he kind of lost his plan partway through, built his defence, and then the players he wanted further forward weren't there anymore. And it looks like a few of these picks have been names out of the hat that he's been making up as he's gone along, and they don't necessarily fit together into a proper squad. Again, quick pick, thinks Saka should be a starting player for him and Richarlison should be up front. Saka is a 2.5-star player. in FM21 at the start of the game. And Richarlison, I don't know. Is he the striker that you go with in the showdown? I'm not sure if I've ever seen him score a bundle of goals. Tom will finish, like I say, he'll do well in the league. He'll get knocked out and he'll claim he was robbed. Work the space. Poor old Jack. He has not learned from previous showdown failures, it seems, and he has gone big on superstars. He's only drafted one goalkeeper who's just not good enough, and he's got very little in the way of strength in depth. It has Jack draft written all over it. If you look at who his best players are, of course they're his front three: Salah, Sterling, Neymar. He's going to score lots of goals from open play, but because he forgot to get a goalkeeper and some defenders, he's going to struggle defensively. This is what I think he's probably going to end up doing. He can put a okay looking back four together. If you compare this to some of the other back fours we've seen throughout the draft picks so far, though, you realise actually just how poor that is in comparison. Strength in depth is largely non-existent. He has got Tammy Abraham, who presumably is going to be a bench player for him, who's been a real good goal scorer in previous showdowns, and I'd actually be inclined to find a way to start him. Maybe doing something like this, where we go to a 4-2-3-1, maybe get Tammy Abraham in up there and perhaps go for something along these lines, maybe, or, you know, these three are kind of interchangeable and can play however you like. And I think he needs to get good performances out of the three of them, Sterling, Neymar and Salah. They are all very, very much hit and miss players in showdowns. We've seen them be great. We've seen them be non-existent. When you're pinning all your hopes on big, expensive players, you leave yourself with the issue as well that your backups to them are the likes of Harvey Barnes. I think Jack is probably going to be mid-table, semi-finals. He'll score a lot of goals. He'll claim he was robbed, but in actual fact, it's just a poorly balanced draft again. Someone needs to explain to Jack why goalkeepers are important in football. Now, we all know Zealand is probably going into the Streamer Showdown with a plan. My question is it actually a good plan? He drafted Virgil van Dijk first, and at that point, I did declare him the winner of the Streamer Showdown because Virgil van Dijk, if used properly, is a game changer. But then you look at the rest of the squad and you realise he just went big on three players to provide a core of the team and then has filled in the rest of it largely with trash. Van Dijk, De Bruyne and Kane looks good on paper. The only problem is Harry Kane is a perennial flop in the showdown and won't score him goals. And if we look for who his other strikers might be, I have to start questioning where goals are going to come from Zealand. De Bruyne is fantastic. He's been in one of my winning squads in the past, but he's also going to be someone who's not going to get you those goals. I'm struggling to work out what he's actually going to be doing tactically. I'm going to be surprised if he does this. It might be Ryan Fraser rather than Phil Foden out wide. It could be San Maximan over there. You could go with Adama Traore, Pepe maybe. He's got a lot of wingers, so he must be using wingers. But at the same time, if you're playing Harry Kane as your only striker, you are asking a lot from those wingers. He's got decent midfield to come in and support and create behind that in De Bruyne and Thiago. But I do wonder if Zealand has perhaps focused a little bit too much on creating chances and forgotten that he actually needs somebody to convert them. And partnering Ben White with Virgil van Dijk, as much as I love Ben White as a Peterborough fan, it doesn't seem like a good plan. Maybe it'll be Ake. If it were me, you don't get Kane. I mean, he used his wild card on Robin Olsen. Get Lukaku for 30 million less, upgrade your defenders, maybe get one less winger, and this could have been a good squad. I still think Zealand will go deep in the competition, but I think he lacks the cutting edge to actually go and win it for a second time. So with all that being said, what do I actually think is going to happen? I told you I'd tell you who the winner was going to be, and I stand by it. I'm going to tell you the semi-finals, I'm going to tell you the final, I'm going to tell you the winner. I actually think the semi-finals, there's four squads that are pretty clear that they're better than the other squads. I would be surprised if the semi-final didn't consist of Dr. Benji, Clates, Zealand, and Work the Space as an outside for those semi-finals. I think at that point we probably lose Clates and work the space. We're going to set up the final that the people want. El Jurassico, Dr. Benji versus Zealand. And at that point, then having all the strikers compared to Zealand having Harry Kane, FM version of Harry Kane. I think at that point, Dr. Benji does finally win his first Streamer Showdown, allowing himself to continue playing in future showdowns and setting up an absolute pasting from Kevy 5 times when we inevitably meet in Season 3. He's the one I think will win. He's the one who I want to win because I want to beat a victorious Dr. Benji because it will be fun wiping the smile off his face. And I actually think, as much as it pains me to say it, he's done a really good draft. He's got the best squad. It's not perfect, but it's about as close as anybody's got in this Kevless Showdown. And that concludes my preview of the Streamer Showdown that kicks off tonight over on Twitch. It's a 6:30 start for the lowdown at twitch.tv/FM Streamer Showdown, a 6 o'clock start tomorrow. And then the individual streamers themselves will be live from 7 p.m. We've got the league stage taking place tonight. There is a KFC chair up for grabs again for the winner of the league. And then tomorrow night, it is the knockout rounds, and we will find out who is the winner of Season 2 of the FM21 Streamer Showdown, aka who's putting a target on their back when Kevy 5 times comes back in Season 3 to knock the smile off their face. If you've enjoyed this video, you want to see more stuff like this for future showdowns, make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on the video for me. Subscribe to this channel if you're new. You're probably not, but you know, you might have come over because you're a big Showdown fan and you just don't normally like Kevy 5 times. Make sure you follow the Showdown over on Twitch as well. And I will see you in the chats of the various streamers and the lowdown over the course of the weekend. Thanks for watching, folks.